You are not that special. Life works the same for everyone. And I know we all grew up different. I know we started out at different places on the chessboard. I know we all start out with different circumstances, but let me say this. Be very careful the limits you put on yourself. And that's the message for today. Because once you see limited, you think limited, therefore you achieve limited. And then it's hard to break free from your limitations. And of course, I will explain, because here is a hard truth we accept at some point more mindfully than you likely care to admit. And it has significant implications for you and I. Some of us achieve king and queen status in life, and some of us die as pawns. Real talk. It is what it is, and either way, it's your choice and decision. So miss me with the side eye, and don't get in your feelings just yet, all right? Let's talk about where you are in your life high level, and agree that it took everything you've done, whatever you've done, step by step in your life, to get you where you are today. And there's sound reason to be where you are. You had to develop and progress at some level because that's the way the game of life is played, right? We are all culturally raised to eventually take care of ourselves as responsible contributors to life. We all had a mama and papa bear. We were all educated in some capacity. Then we are released into the solo game of life. And when you were released, intentionally or unintentionally, you walk the path to hold yourself accountable to some standards, because that's what we were raised and taught to do. You likely went out seeking employment because we need money to live. You likely went out seeking an intimate relationship because that takes care of our companionship needs. Maybe you started a family, and on and on and on and on. And if you haven't gotten that far just yet, still a little wet behind the ears in the standard view of life, you're somewhere on your path to that reality, right? So you seek these things because you feel like that is what you are destined to do in some capacity, and it makes some logical sense and satisfies your human existence. Cool. We got that as a baseline. Now let's discuss the danger of a limited view and how life works the same for everyone. If we can again agree that it took all you had emotionally, intellectually, and physically to meet the current expectations of your life, but you can't seem to break through no matter what you do. Firstly, I'm going to argue that it's your fault, because otherwise you relinquish ownership of your life, and that's not right, and that's also no bueno. But specifically, you've created the perception of an impenetrable ceiling versus raising your floor. Let me explain. I started with life works the same for everyone, and be careful the limits you put on yourself. In other words, what got you here won't and never will take you to the next level. Meaning, if you can't make any progress in your life, then it's akin to starting out in front of a building. You're looking up, and you're like, I got to climb all these stairs of the buildings to get to the top of the building, because that checks all the boxes. And I get to the top of the building, but I don't open the door to the rooftop, because you're like, well, that's just the top of the building, and that's just the roof, and I'll just be staring into space. There's nothing out there for me. And when you do that, or rather don't do that, then you don't raise your floor, thereby not raising your roof. You look up, and there's an obvious ceiling restricting you. And the ceiling then creates a limit for growth, because you can't see past what is likely at this point perceived as concrete and impenetrable. So that forces you to look back, to be in maintenance mode. And your mindset now is, I don't want to fall back down the stairs, because it took a lot for me to climb up here. But I also won't go any further, because clearly I've reached the top of the building. Now you're living a just enough life. I have just enough knowledge to do my job. I have just enough money to pay my bills and eat. I have just enough emotional intelligence to maintain my marriage or relationship. I am just healthy enough to wake up and live today. I have just enough. I have just enough. I have just enough. And that'll never be enough to break through. So if you're not making progress, it's because you haven't broke through your current ceiling, which then raises your floor by default. Life is a skill set game, and the more you have, at least skill-wise, the more you're compensated. And that's in all aspects we've already discussed. Personally for self, relationally, spiritually, monetarily, and on and on and on. I'll say this. I was taught this early. In life, you don't get what you feel you deserve. You get what you negotiate. Now, back to the dangers of this mindset. When you create a ceiling, that becomes your limit. Then your mind will consciously only seek out efficiencies needed to attain that limit. And furthermore, once you get the limit, it just wants to maintain it. So in other words, if you want to make $100K a year, You'll get there. But then you'll feel stuck when you get to 100K. If you want to get married, buy a house with the white fence and drive a BMW, you'll get the house, the family, the BMW, but then you'll feel stuck when you get there. And if you're watching this and feeling that stuckness resonate inside of you, there's a way out. And you have to start thinking on a compound effect method, right? Create a vision of a glass ceiling. You put in the work that is required to get to the top of that ceiling. You break through the ceiling, and now you have a new floor, meaning whatever you are doing today is not enough to grow, at least to progress and fulfill a higher destiny. There's an action you need to start to take and start today. This means you might have to wake up earlier. You might need to start a new workout routine. You might need to invest in reading some new material, maybe a new job. Maybe you got to stay up later. You might have to delete all your current contacts and go dark from everyone. You might have to do all these things simultaneously, because if you don't, then you will live as you live today. And if that's okay with you, that's totally fine by me. I'm not suggesting you need a change. What I am saying is be careful the limits you see for yourself, because that is forever and the only achievements you will realize. Life works the same for everyone. And if you're not the version of the vision you see for yourself, it's because you can't see through your ceiling. So are you willing to suffer through the sacrifice? King, queen, or pawn? That's for you to decide. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Stay rich.